It appears that the end of the Billy Napier era at Florida is upon us.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast and Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators with swampsignal.substack.com. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And reports, really, for a month now, we've been having the conversations of, well, hey, it seems like this is the end of the Billy Napier era. The loss to USF in week 2 really felt like, okay, this season's not going to go the way that any of us are expecting. The loss to LSU in week 3, again, it was like, all right, well, 5 interceptions doesn't make us go, okay, it's just the coaching anymore. It's the players too. The Miami game, there was like some hope up until the final 5 minutes of the game, but I don't give a damn about, well, yeah, we're close. I want you to win football games. And then you had the bye week. You beat Texas A&M beat the crap out of you. It felt like for much of this year, we were just waiting, right? Or much of this season, we were just waiting. Last year, they were off to a rough start. And I want to make this clear, too, because one of the reports that came out, I forgot who did it, so I'm so sorry. But one of the reports that came out said that Scott Strickland and they met with boosters last year, it was USA Today that they met with Billy, and Billy was supposed to get an OC, and that was a big part of it. And then he can come back if he agreed to get an OC, and then he didn't get an OC. And so, now it's back again, and the reports are that he could genuinely be fired as soon as this weekend. And look, last year when he got the vote of confidence, there were people that said, hey, he has to get an OC as part of it. And we get that. But here's the thing. None of that matters if you don't enforce things, right? It's as simple as that. And I don't know how you enforce something like that truly, other than saying, hey, you have until this date, say 2 weeks before signing day, to have an OC hired, or you are fired and we will find someone else. Outside of that, I don't know how you do anything. And then I guess because he won the 4 games at the end of the year, it really changed it. So I guess that made things a little bit different. So yes, he was supposed to hire an OC. In the article, they named Charlie Weiss Jr. from Ole Miss as the OC. He is, of course, Ole Miss's OC right now. And I will also say that, and he tried hiring Charlie Weiss before 2024. Like it was a whole thing. They was trying to get Charlie Weiss. I will also say that I know he spoke with at least 3 more candidates. I'm not sure how legitimate those conversations were or how legitimate those possibilities were. Because when I'm thinking about it, like, all right, well, one of them is still at the spot that he was at when he took that interview. So I do think he got bumped from non-play calling to play calling. So who knows how legit that was, or if that was just for him boosting himself up or whatever that may be. Another one is no longer at the last spot, did not get fired, just went to a different place and also took a promotion. So I don't know. Again, like I would think that the Florida OC job would be more prestigious than that, but I don't know what the reasoning was, right? Maybe it was having full autonomy. Maybe it was like, hey, I want to call plays, but I don't want to call plays for this offensive system. And I would imagine that if Billy, and by the way, another one is still at the same spot, no change there. So I would imagine that For Billy, at least part of it came down to, hey, I'm going to bring you in as a play caller, but you're just going to call my offense, which honestly I've said I was fine with. I do, because I do think that if this offense is better coached, it can be a lot more successful. I do think, and like I've said a thousand times, that for me, a lot of why Billy needed an offensive coordinator was not because of his failure as an offensive coordinator. He wasn't doing a good job. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not saying that he didn't fail there, but I'm saying that for me, the reason that Billy needed to hire an offensive coordinator was not because he was a bad offensive coordinator, which again, he was, but because he wasn't a good enough head coach with that on his plate. And so by taking that off his plate, maybe he would be a better coach. Maybe. But that's kind of where I've stood on Billy. Like, again, I don't think that the offense is perfect. I think that the offensive system works. I do. I just think that they have not done a good job of getting the personnel to run that offensive system, which is, again, a different argument and a very valid argument at that. I'm not dismissing that one at all. But I will say that a lot of it just came down to that. Came down to Billy not getting out of his own way, which we'll talk about a little bit in the next segment. But yeah, the report is now that he could be fired as soon as this weekend. We'll see if that actually happens, right? Because it would be weird. Like, I do think that there are players who or not even like I think that their still locker room is not out on Billy. I think that there are players who probably go, okay, you're going to get fired, but we want to finish the year for you. Like, I think that that's a thing with players. If you win and then fire him, I think that's a weird look. Again, I get it. Like he's getting fired regardless. You got the bye week. Like, maybe that's what it is. But even then, with all this reporting, I don't know. If he were to like up until these reports, I was like, hey, like, I'll believe it when I see it, right? Because if he beat Mississippi State and then somehow beat Georgia, like, I could easily see them talking themselves into it. But I do think that adding in the context that he genuinely did say, hey, I'll hire an offensive coordinator, and then didn't, other than promoting Russ Callaway to full-time offensive coordinator without handing over play calling duties, because that was reportedly part of the arrangement, was that you need to give up play calling duties. And so I do think that with all that, you could say, all right, we gave you a shot, which is, it's all I've ever said I think Scott Strickland is doing. Like, I am fully on board and fully open with saying I think Scott Strickland is a spineless loser. That's not changing. But I've also fully been on board with saying that I think Scott Strickland is doing everything he can to just give Billy a shot. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, the whole wait until you're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Right now, I think Florida's got a 0.4% chance. It ain't happening. And so I think it's like things like that. We're saying, hey, we'll wait until you're mathematically eliminated from playoffs. We'll wait until this. We'll wait until that. Just giving you every last opportunity. I do truly believe that Scott Strickland is doing that. But my fear with doing that was that if you're doing that, you're not saying, hey, I'm fully out on you no matter what happens. Which is what you should have been after week 2. I said this last year, right? Like, I wanted Billy fired last year after Texas A&M. I was always going into year 3, and I was always very open going into year 3 of, I will give you until year 3. Year 3 happened. You got smoked by Miami. You got smoked by A&M, both at home. So I've been, all right, I'm out on Billy toward the end of the year. I said, hey, you win out, then go ahead. If you win out, I will stop calling for your job. Not that I don't want you fired, but I will stop calling for your job. He won out. And I said, the moment you screw up, right back on you. The moment he screwed up was right back on him. I think that a lot led to Florida or Billy Napier not working out of Florida. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280 1,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And this episode of Locked On Gators is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So what are you waiting for, right? Maybe you want to bet on Florida covering the spread against Mississippi State. I'm not, personally. Just going to throw that out there. I'm not. But visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free by visiting the podcast and on YouTube. And Billy Napier, again, getting fired at Florida at some point, right? We could talk about the timeline in the next segment. But the coaching downfall for him is him, right? Like many coaches too. Like I see the timeline and Twitter spaces and group chats always talking about like, oh, it's because his ego this, which you're not wrong. Okay, let's get that clear. You're not wrong for talking about it being his ego. That's the downfall for a lot of coaches. That's always what it is, or almost always what it is that your ego gets in the way. And no matter what it may be, right? For Billy Napier, it was his obsessive need to be the offensive play caller. That mattered more than winning games. That mattered more than anything, right? So there's that. You talk about Dan Mullen. A big thing with him was his ego, but also not wanting to let go of Todd Grantham when it was so clear that it wasn't working. And that's oftentimes we see too with ego, right? With ego, it's I have this guy running this system, and I think that's the good fit. It's not working right now for whatever reason, but we'll get it right. And then it doesn't. It's very rare that changes. We see all the time with play calling head coaches. They eventually give up their play calling duties or they get fired. But like offensive play calling head coaches don't win national championships. That's not what happens. And a big reason for that is because they've got so much on their plate, right? Ryan Day gave it up and instantly won a national championship. I'm not saying, by the way, that you do that and that's the kind of leap you take. They also spent a ton of money on players. But ego is what's going to get Billy. The play calling, the not, I guess, expanding the system. Because, again, I think that one of the biggest things is that you recruited for a different system than you really ran. And so you should have expanded on it. That's it. Should have just been like, hey, we're going to run, a little more spread style. And no, I don't mean spread style as in like 4 wide, 5 wide. I'm not doing that. That doesn't make sense a lot. But I am saying that there's different concepts that you could have broken out and tried to get more creative with things, and you didn't. You had an air raid guy on your staff. You never really took the leap into an air raid leg of your offense, I guess. There's the game management side, which isn't so much ego. I don't fully know how to explain the game management side because there were a lot of instances throughout this 4 years where things would happen. And when Billy got hired, he was very openly like, yeah, we're going to, like, analytics are an important thing here. We're going to do that. Sure. All that. But never really fully dove into them. And when he was at Louisiana, he was more analytically oriented. I truly believe that with his scared money, don't make money. Like, I talk about this all the time. Like, analytics more often than not actually tells you to be more aggressive. That's what, like, analytics more often than not tells you to be more aggressive because there's opportunity cost involved there. And with analytics, like 4th down calls, and 2-point conversions, it's like you're basically taking the math of what is our win percentage, or like what's our percent, like our chance of winning, what's our winning chance percentage, is what we'll call it. But like what's the win percentage of if we convert this 4th down, or if we go for it on this 4th down and get it? What's our win percentage if we go for it and don't convert it? And what's our win percentage if we punt or kick the field goal, whatever it may be? And what analytics is telling you is just, hey, this is what gives you the highest win percentage, whether that's, 42% if you get it, 31% if you don't get it, 38% if you kick it. And you go, okay, well, go for it is the highest chance we win if we get it. And then you have to actually execute. But Billy he never fully bought into that. I've always, or not always, but since the Tennessee game in 2024, when Florida scored a late touchdown on the DJ Lagway throw, came out and lined up going for 2. And I was like, all right, that's the right call. That was the right call to come out and go for 2. I don't know about the play call, because that's also what usually gets mixed up, is that they go for 4th down and you go, oh, what a stupid decision to go for it there if they don't get it. Now, that's not true. Oftentimes it's the play call that screws it up. Like the analytics side of it is just, what's our win percentage here? What gives us the best chance to win? That's it. It doesn't tell you if you call this play against that coverage. It doesn't tell you that. It just tells you what's your win percentage. If you go for it, get it, go for it, don't get it, or kick. The 2-point conversion against Tennessee, he came out with an insane play with Hayden Hansen snapping the ball. And we spoke with Hayden after the game. He was on the show, and and I asked him, I was like, hey, like were you guys ready to run a play like that? He's like, I was ready to snap that ball. So I don't know what they were really trying to do on it. But thank God they called timeout. But then Tennessee called timeout. Billy Napier celebrated getting them to call a timeout, and then came out and kicked the PAT. And it's like, well, that was scared money. And you ended up losing the game, which you were always going to do if you kicked that PAT, because you weren't scoring touchdowns. You weren't finding that success. And they were going to, it was going to be a battle of field goals until they scored a touchdown. That was it. So there's that. Game management was always a thing. We've talked about the middle 8, the burning the timeouts, the going slow in the second half, even though you're losing by 2 scores with 8 minutes left. We've talked about all of that. One thing I've talked about a lot is the lack of development, I think, that he's had with some of the assistant coach hires. This past offseason, or at the end of last season, we were talking about, all right, well, Billy's back, but with Billy being back, he should probably upgrade the staff around him if he wants to keep his job past 2025. You had a few guys with contracts expiring. Wide receiver coach Billy Gonzalez is someone that I wanted to move on from. And look, when Billy Gonzalez got hired, there were a lot of Florida Gators fans that were against it, or at least in my comment section, that were against it. And I was for it. I was like, Billy develops NFL receivers, Billy Gonzalez. He does that. He doesn't necessarily have all the flashy stuff. Like, he gets into the league, and that's good, and that's a great recruiting point. The edge, I wanted Mike Peterson gone. I frankly, I don't think he's a very good edge coach. Offensive line, wanted a change there with Rob Sale gone. Definitely didn't happen. Tight end coach, you probably should have had a full-time tight end coach the entire time. But with wide receiver, with edge, with offensive line, like, you thought you were better at developing. Years ago with offensive line, I said, okay, like, I respect saying, hey, we're going to take these big guys with high ceilings and develop them, but you're banking on your development. And if you don't develop them right, then you're screwed. And that's what happened. With wide receiver, look at all the best receivers they've had under Billy Napier. Trey Wilson as a freshman, incredible fall off after that. Ricky Pearsall, transfer. Elijah Badger, transfer. Chim Dike, transfer. VB3, Dallas Wilson, true freshman. They have not been really developed by this staff right now. There hasn't been development at wide receiver. They bring in talent, but do they really develop it? I don't think so. Edge, how many edges have left and gone on to be better and go to the NFL? Jack Pyburn had 8 pressures last week. I honestly, I don't know if he had that in all of 2024 with Florida. The edge coaching isn't good at Florida. Offensive line, I mean, we've talked about Rob Sale 1,000 times. We don't need to harp on that one anymore. We've wanted him gone. He's still here. Either way, is what it is. That will soon not be my need to talk about anymore. We are going to talk about maybe the timeline here when we get back with Locked On Gators. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention with how they craft every model. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every single move count and you're intentional and you have the right approach to things, the word impossible becomes simply irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are talking about this timeline for Billy Napier to finally get fired. And look, I don't know what the interim choice is going to be. I don't know if they know what the interim choice is going to be, truly. Because when you look at the possibilities, and we're going to look at just who's on staff. I know there's going to be people that say, hey, go get Urban. There's going to be people that say, hey, go get this guy, go get this. Yeah, that's fine. But when we talk about who's on staff and you look at the possibilities, we'll start with coordinators. I am firmly against the idea of promoting a coordinator to head coach as an interim. That being that as a coordinator, your job should just be to do your job. Call plays. Ron Roberts has incredible experience. When you look at the resume, he was a head coach before, so like he might be the easy one to go. But he's got to be the DC. I don't think he should be the interim head coach. Nothing to do with him, has to do with his title. Because he's also got the executive head coach. That's fine. He's still DC. Russ Callaway is going to be calling plays, I would imagine. He should stay doing that. Just be the offensive coordinator at that point. You look at quarterback coaches, Ryan O'Hara, he shouldn't do it. He's not nearly experienced enough. Resume-wise, it's not great for the gig either. Running back coach, Jabbar Jalouk, I feel like a lot of people looked at him and thought that's the eventual interim, right? Like that's the guy that's going to be the interim whenever Billy Napier gets fired. But then he had the incident with LSU where he struck a player on LSU's team and was suspended for 3 games. And I really don't know if that impacted his interim chances or how it impacted his interim chances. I really don't know, but I don't know. Something about it just tells me like if he was the interim, I don't know if he's the interim anymore, right? I feel like prior to that slap, a lot of people felt comfortable saying that's probably going to be the guy. He was the associate head coach. He's been here the whole time that Billy's been here. He knows all the players, all that. Wide receiver coach Billy Gonzalez, maybe, but doubt it. Offensive line coach Rob Sale, doubt it. Other offensive line coach Jonathan DeCoster, doubt it. I'm not going to lie about this. Whoever the interim is, I would not hate it if they went, all right, Rob Sale, we're going to let you go. Jonathan DeCoster's got the line for the rest of the season, and we just see how it goes. Honestly, you can only change so much. You can only improve so much. But from people I've spoken to, Jonathan DeCoster's pretty damn solid coach from a great tree, and so I think that's really important. Defensive line coach Gerald Chapman, maybe, honestly. I don't know. Like we've heard the practice clips where he's just getting on people about little screw ups. And it's like, all right, well, I like that, right? Like I like having a coach that's going to do that. He's an intense dude. Like I met him and he was nice the whole time, but I was still just like, this dude's intense. Which is a good thing, by the way, especially if you're going to be temporarily leading the program when everyone's given up on you to, just stand up, fight back there. Linebacker coach Robert Bala, doubt it. Either the DB coaches, Vinny Sunseri, DeMar Wilson, doubt it. special teams coordinator Joe Houston. Doubt it, but I do love Joe Houston. There's one name I haven't named because it's the guy that I've said I wanted to be either Jaluk or I could see it being either Jaluk or this guy. And it's also the edge coach that I wanted replaced and still want replaced, Mike Peterson. Again, I don't think he's a great edge coach. I think he could just say, hey, we're going to give it to the D-line and let Gerald Chapman try to do something with these guys. But also, I do think there's value in replacing a head coach that's not a Gator, right? As in not Gator alum, none of that. And replacing him with Gator alum, someone that put this helmet on and played on this same field. I do think there's value in that when you're talking about an interim. And so I could easily see Mike P being the guy where he comes in and, again, I don't think he's a great edge coach. He might be an awesome leader. I don't know. I just don't think he's a great edge coach. And so maybe like Jaluk and Mike P would probably be the guys that I would pencil in if I were making the decision, but I don't know what the decision is going to be. I also will say for the timeline, I don't know if Billy's going to get fired this weekend. Partially because if you've already made the decision, there is a genuine possibility where you go, all right, well, we're going to let you finish out the year. So I don't think it matters when it happens, honestly. As long as it happens, I don't think it matters when it happens. Not anymore. Earlier in the season, after the USF game, we spoke about it, and the big selling point or the big talking point was, well, you get fired, that opens a 30-day transfer portal window for your roster. That's not the case anymore. Now that window opens either when the actual portal opens or 5 days after a head coach is hired. So that 30-day window doesn't matter anymore. So who cares, right? Like that because the big selling point was, okay, like you fire him, you get started. You don't need to. Let's also, like, most of us are adults here, right? I know I'm an adult. I'm imagining, I don't know, like 90% of you are full-blown adults. It doesn't really matter when Billy Napier's fired anymore, right? As long as they do it. But those, because the argument is always like, oh, well, you can get started on your head coaching search sooner. Those back channel conversations, I'm not even saying this like sourced up or anything like that. I'm saying those back channel conversations have been happening already. We know this. Like, we're adults. We could talk about this. We could talk about how NIL is probably not done right, and how a lot of players are told lies in recruiting and given money or promised money that they're not getting, and that sucks, and promised playing time that they're not getting. We can acknowledge that these conversations are probably happening in back channels some way. Billy Napier has the same agent as Lane Kiffin, who's the same agent as Dan Lanning, who has the same agent as Brent Key, who has the same agent as Kayla DeBoer, who has the same agent as Mike Norvell, who has the same agent as Steve Sarkisian. Like, Jimmy Sexton reps basically everybody at this point. You could easily have a conversation with Jimmy Sexton and be like, hey, we're thinking about firing Billy. What does this guy think? Like, is this guy looking for a job? Is he interested? Like, you could easily just do that. That's fine. They're not monitored calls. You could do that. They're having back channel conversations. That's fine. And again, I'm not even saying that like, oh yeah, source. Like, that's just common sense. They're having those conversations. So they either like, okay, I stopped doing the whole like if he loses this weekend he's fired thing because I think that was a waste of time. I think that they've either had a time they want him gone, or they're keeping him through the end of the season. And honestly, like I don't care. As long as he's gone, I would prefer he'd be gone. I mean, week 2. I'd prefer he'd be gone sooner rather than later, so you could see an interim and just see what this team looks like with different coaching, which could also entice one of those coaches that you're talking to on the back channel. But if he's here, he's here. Like, again, as long as he is gone, that's all I care about. That's really it. And I will say that like I'm not doing the whole like insulting him and calling him names, and I'm not doing that. I get it. Like, he's about to get generational wealth. Absolutely. I don't think he's done anything malicious, right? Like I don't think that just because you're simply not good enough here. I don't think that's the reason for me to go calling you names and saying all types of things about you. I just think you're not good enough, and that is what it is. That's life. Like sometimes things can be amicable, and that is what it is. So that's where I'm going to go with. I'm not going to go insulting. Like when Dan Mullen got fired, I was hoping for it, and I think that he was doing not great things, and I think he gave up on the program, and that to me is a killer. That's why when he got fired, I was like, oh, the bad man's gone. Like, there we go. Like, now we can at least try to recover here. I'm not going to do that with Billy. Like, I'm happy that he's going to get fired eventually, but at the same time, like, it's simply he wasn't good enough. That's all it needs to be. I don't need to go, oh, because you're not good enough, you're a bad person. Let's not do that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about the football game that's being played on Saturday against Mississippi State. It's homecoming for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI and all my Florida Gators written work with swampsignal.substack.com. And I'll see you all next time.